In a romantic room, a young couple was kissing passionately. Then the two quickly took off all the clothes on their bodies. They thought it would be a wonderful night of love, but unexpectedly, when the young man woke up, he discovered that his lover had been stabbed 13 times and died on the bed. Moreover, when he was taken to the police station, they also found a bloody knife on the young man's body. No matter how he tried to explain, no one believed him. The young man panicked and could only helplessly cry out in despair. However, could a murderer have such sincere expressions? Was there any other secret behind the death of his female lover? Was the poor young man the real murderer, or was he framed? And if he was innocent, how could he clear his name? It all started with a young man in 12th grade. Hyun-soo was originally a docile and gentle person. Hyun-soo wanted to finish his college entrance exam and prepare for a bright future ahead, but his friends invited Hyun-soo to go to a pool party together. Hyun-soo thought that he was still single, and that if he could flirt with a girl at the pool party, he might become an adult before entering college. So Hyun-soo accepted his friend's invitation. Hyun-soo finished his meal and changed his clothes. While his parents were watching TV, Hyun-soo secretly took the keys to his father's taxi. Hyun-soo thought that he had to buy condoms anyway, so he wanted to save some money on the rental car. Hyun-soo even turned off the black box so that his father wouldn't find out that he had stolen the car to go out. Then Hyun-soo drove straight to the party, but when Hyun-soo was waiting for the red light, a beautiful girl named Guk-hwa suddenly sat in the back seat. Hyun-soo originally wanted to tell her to get out of the car, but Guk-hwa's beauty made him change his mind. A beautiful person like Guk-hwa is really rare. When Guk-hwa tossed her hair, there was a kind of charm that attracted Hyun-soo. After all, Hyun-soo was in puberty, so he quickly fell for her beauty. Hyun-soo drove Guk-hwa around the city. Suddenly, the car ran out of gas, so Hyun-soo had to go fill up the tank. At this time, Guk-hwa lit a cigarette. Hyun-soo reminded her that it was forbidden to light a fire at the gas station, but she didn't care and asked Hyun-soo to buy her a can of beer. Guk-hwa even threw the half-burnt cigarette outside. Her attitude was extremely arrogant. A man at the gas station saw this and stepped on the cigarette butt. At this time, Hyun-soo also returned. Hyun-soo took Guk-hwa away from the gas station. When Hyun-soo was halfway there, his friends called. They said there were a lot of beautiful girls at the pool party. Guk-hwa smiled in the back seat. As soon as Guk-hwa heard, he knew that Hyun-soo had never had sex. So after Hyun-soo hung up, Guk-hwa started teasing him. After that, the two of them sat together on the banks of the Han River to enjoy the breeze. They took aphrodisiacs together and even went out to buy ice cream without paying. For the past 18 years, Hyun-soo has always been a good student, but now he is infatuated with Guk-hwa. Hyun-soo was tired of playing, so he took her home. When entering the residential area, Hyun-soo accidentally crashed into the car in front. The car owner was a very strange person. He said it was okay and told them to go home. But when Hyun-soo and Guk-hwa entered the house, he revealed a strange expression. Guk-hwa led Hyun-soo into the house and took out a bottle of strong alcohol. Only then did Hyun-soo know that Guk-hwa was the daughter of a tycoon who had just returned from studying abroad. After Guk-hwa's mother passed away, she left behind this villa. Originally, Guk-hwa had a roommate, but they broke up for some reason. Guk-hwa used her beauty to stimulate Hyun-soo to drink alcohol. She also told Hyun-soo to eat some kind of drug. Then, she took out a knife and told Hyun-soo to try it. Hyun-soo saw Guk-hwa's provocative gaze. He finished his glass of wine and tried to do as she said. However, Hyun-soo was not as skilled as Guk-hwa. The knife stabbed her palm. Hyun-soo quickly took something to stop the bleeding for her, but the pain made Guk-hwa excited. Guk-hwa took the initiative to kiss Hyun-soo. The two kissed from the living room up the stairs, then they kissed from the stairs into the room. They pushed each other onto the bed and made love. When Hyun-soo woke up, he didn't know why he was lying on the sofa. After that, Hyun-soo went back to his room to get dressed. Hyun-soo originally intended to leave Guk-hwa's contact information, but she lay still and didn't answer him. Hyun-soo touched Guk-hwa's white back, but there was something stuck on her back. Hyun-soo curiously turned on the light. The scene before his eyes made Hyun-soo shocked and terrified. Hyun-soo panicked and ran out of the house, intending to drive away. But Hyun-soo suddenly realized that he forgot his key, so he had to go back to Guk-hwa's house to get it. But now the door had automatically locked. Hyun-soo was forced to break the glass door and reach in to open the door. But Hyun-soo's arm was accidentally cut by the glass, which attracted the attention of the old man in the house across the street. Hyun-soo took the key and put on his coat. Hyun-soo looked at the knife and the blood on the table. He remembered that he had played a stabbing game with Guk-hwa. there were still Hyun-soo's fingerprints on the knife, so he used a tissue to wipe off the traces. In the end, Hyun-soo still felt unsafe. Hyun-soo picked up the knife on the table and ran out of the house. Hyun-soo drove very fast on the road. Hyun-soo's unusual actions were noticed by a female police officer. The female police officer thought Hyun-soo was drunk driving, so she took out her breathalyzer to check. But when Hyun-soo was about to blow the whistle, the battery ran out. At this time, the walkie-talkie rang out a mission announcement. A house in this area was broken into. All the police had to go to support. The female police officer had no choice but to take Hyun-soo along. When Hyun-soo looked at the familiar scene on the side of the road, he suddenly felt a little surprised. He had returned to the area near Guk-hwa's house. It turned out that when Hyun-soo returned to get the key, the old man in the house across the street felt suspicious and called the police. The police entered the house and found Guk-hwa's body, so he called his teammates nearby to help. So Hyun-soo returned here. At this time, Hyun-soo was sitting in the police car, very scared. The investigation team leader Park Sang-beom noticed Hyun-soo. He asked the female police officer about Hyun-soo's appearance. When the team leader Park knew that Hyun-soo might be driving drunk, he told his subordinates to take Hyun-soo to the police station first. On the way back to the station, Hyun-soo heard two police officers discussing the details of the case. They said the murderer was very cruel, stabbing Guk-hwa a total of 13 times. Captain Park and the forensics examined the scene, but they found no valuable clues. Captain Park then went out and heard the car owner talking to the police yesterday. He said that Guk-hwa had brought someone home. Captain Park asked about the specific situation. The man he mentioned was highly likely to be the murderer. Hyun-soo was very worried. When he heard that, Hyun-soo originally wanted to run away, but he ran into the old man next door who had reported the case. So Hyun-soo had no choice but to return to the old man's place to avoid him. But the old man found Hyun-soo very familiar, so he kept staring at Hyun-soo. Captain Park quickly returned to the police station. He noticed that Hyun-soo seemed to be avoiding something, so he told the female police officer to search Hyun-soo. Captain Park began to summarize the details of the case with another police officer. When Captain Park said the suspect got into a taxi and fled, the old man next to him suddenly interrupted and said that the suspect drove away himself. At this time, Captain Park turned to look at Hyun-soo. The female police officer also found a knife on Hyun-soo. When Hyun-soo encountered such a situation, he immediately collapsed. Hyun-soo could only keep saying that he was not the culprit. The police restrained Hyun-soo and took him to the interrogation room. Captain Park personally questioned Hyun-soo, but Hyun-soo's answer could not satisfy him. Captain Park is a police officer with many years of experience. He had come into contact with many criminals, so he did not believe Hyun-soo's words. Captain Park told the police to test the traces on Hyun-soo's body. After that, Hyun-soo was stripped of all his clothes and sprayed with some kind of solution. After the police turned on the lights, many traces of blood reaction appeared on Hyun-soo's body. This was very similar to the traces of the victim's resistance. Hyun-soo still pleaded innocent and said that he did not harm her, but Hyun-soo was quickly locked up. When Hyun-soo saw the prisoner next to him talking to a lawyer, he also thought about calling a lawyer. Hyun-soo asked the police nearby to help him, but they teased him. They said that if Hyun-soo said he didn't harm anyone, there was no need to call a lawyer. Hyun-soo was told that and immediately kept quiet. Lawyer Shin Jong-han left after talking to his client. Shin Jong-han had already left the station, but when he remembered Hyun-soo's innocent expression, Lawyer Shin couldn't ignore it and turned back. Lawyer Shin wanted to see if Hyun-soo was really wronged. First, Lawyer Shin introduced himself. After the two talked to each other, Lawyer Shin said he could be Hyun-soo's representative lawyer. When Hyun-soo saw Lawyer Shin's hand, he responded. At this time, Hyun-soo just found out that the girl who had spent an intimate night with him was named Guk-hwa. Lawyer Shin went to the police to ask about the situation. Lawyer Shin knew that Guk-hwa was stabbed 13 times, and all the evidence was aimed at Hyun-soo. Lawyer Shin understood that this case was not easy. Lawyer Shin returned to the prison. He seriously told Hyun-soo to remember two things. The first thing is that evidence and truth are not important. The important thing is that Hyun-soo must tell what is beneficial to him. The second thing is that Hyun-soo must keep quiet and not say anything. Because Hyun-soo does not know the law, he will easily tell bad news to himself. Hyun-soo emphasized that he did not kill anyone. Lawyer Shin said that it is meaningless for Hyun-soo to tell the truth now. Through the evidence, the police have determined that he is the murderer. They will definitely think of a way to convict Hyun-soo. Lawyer Shin will also do his best to reduce the sentence and ask for forgiveness for Hyun-soo. Lawyer Shin also mentioned Captain Park to Hyun-soo. He is an extremely scary criminal police officer. Captain Park only believes in the evidence at the scene. Then he will find loopholes in the suspect's testimony. From there, he will find a way to put the suspect in jail. While Lawyer Shin and Hyun-soo were were talking, Captain Park also began investigating the case. First, he met the first witness. Captain Park showed him a photo to confirm that the person who entered the house with Gu Kwa last night was Hyun-soo. Then Captain Park met the female police officer to test for alcohol concentration. The female police officer said that Hyun-soo's eyes were constantly moving and he was acting suspiciously. Another police officer mentioned that Hyun-soo had asked if Gu Kwa was really dead. Their testimony was extremely unfavorable to Hyun-soo. Captain Park asked the forensics to check. All the evidence proved that Hyun-soo was the murderer. Captain Park found a bottle of medicine on the ground. He remembered that Hyun-soo had mentioned asthma, so he put the bottle in his pocket. The police also called Gu Kwa's father. It turned out that Gu Kwa and her father had rarely seen each other since her mother's death. They were only father and daughter on paper. After Gu Kwa's father agreed, the police performed an autopsy on her body. Hyun-soo's parents also came to the police station. They had absolutely no idea that their son would experience this. Captain Park arranged a single room for them, then secretly turned on the camera to monitor the conversation to find more evidence. Fortunately, Lawyer Shin quickly arrived and stopped them in time. Lawyer Shin had clearly told Hyun-soo not to say anything, but Hyun-soo disobeyed and talked to his parents. Lawyer Shin angrily said that when Hyun-soo talked to his parents, he would definitely reveal something. That video will be used as evidence, and Lawyer Shin will not see it until it is shown, so Lawyer Shin will not be prepared to handle it. Captain Park is discussing the details of the case with the director. The director presents all the evidence and says that although there is clear evidence in this case, the suspect does not confess. Captain Park does not say a word. Captain Park is hesitating whether Hyun-soo is the culprit or not, but the director does not let Captain Park hesitate. The director also mentioned a friend who opened a law office. That person needs someone who specializes in handling cases for the rich, so the director introduced Captain Park to his friend. The director hopes that Captain Park can be convicted because this case is the best way to improve Captain Park's reputation. After Captain Park heard the director's words, he wanted to quickly convict Hyun-soo. He went to the prison again to give Hyun-soo a bottle of medicine. Then he advised Hyun-soo to obediently confess, but Hyun-soo was reminded by Lawyer Shin, so he was no longer as naive as before. Hyun-soo calmly told Captain Park that Captain Park forcing him to confess like this was illegal. Captain Park returned to the office without hesitation. He decided to transfer this case to the police at the request of the director. It can be seen that Captain Park is very formidable. Because Captain Park wanted to force Hyun-soo to confess, Captain Park deliberately made him change his shirt. This was a shirt from a famous brand. It would definitely make it difficult for Hyun-soo to get everyone's sympathy, and that would affect the jury's verdict. But because the situation was urgent, Lawyer Shin was helpless and could not do anything. Then the interrogation began. The prosecutor listed a lot of evidence, none of which was beneficial to Hyun-soo. The nature of the case was also too tragic, so Hyun-soo was forced to go to jail. Lawyer Shin began to argue. Although a lot of evidence pointed to Hyun-soo, the case still had other possibilities. Hyun-soo was a good student. He had never done anything bad. Hyun-soo also had no chance of running away. So Lawyer Shin suggested that they should not arrest Hyun-soo until the police had investigated the case clearly. The judge looked at the shirt Hyun-soo was wearing, and she somewhat agreed with the prosecutor. After the judge considered this carefully, she decided to put Hyun-soo in jail. So that very rainy night, Hyun-soo was forced to change into his prison clothes and transferred to the prison. Hyun-soo's miserable life began from there. Hyun-soo was quickly assigned to a 3-person cell. Hyun-soo had 2 cellmates. One of them was Jung Sang-soo, who loved to read. The other was a mentally ill prisoner named Do-sik. After the entire prison turned off the lights, Do-sik's panic attacks began. This made Hyun-soo unable to sleep. Hyun-soo also knew that he was not really crazy, but that he had been beaten crazy by the thugs in the prison. There were 2 factions in this prison. One of them was the White Tiger Gang. The leader of the gang was Baek-ho, and the second in command was Jang-ho. Do-sik had been beaten crazy by Jang-ho. Sang-soo sat next to Hyun-soo and reminded him that he must not cause trouble with the White Tiger Gang, or else he would be tortured endlessly. The other force in the prison was the Lion Gang. This was the opposing force of the White Tiger. The Lion Gang only had 2 members. The leader was Do Ji-tae. His drug name was Tae-hoon, and he could break other people's bones. Ji-tae and Tae-hoon worked very well together. These 2 could also sell things in prison. Whether it was phones, cigarettes, or illegal substances, they could find them for other prisoners. Because Do-sik was beaten so hard by Jang-ho, Hyun-soo began to feel sympathy. When Hyun-soo received the asthma medicine, he also took the painkiller for Do-sik. But Hyun-soo did not expect that this would be discovered by Baek-ho and Jang-ho. Jang-ho immediately changed his target and started bullying Hyun-soo. When Jang-ho and Baek-ho were about to teach Hyun-soo a lesson, a clear voice came from afar. Ji-tae and Taehoon looked at them coldly. Baekho thought that Hyun-soo had angered Taehoon, so he quickly took Jang-ho back. At the same time, outside the prison, Lawyer Shin kept going everywhere for Hyun-soo. Lawyer Shin started to investigate. If Hyun-soo refused to admit his guilt, the police would put other charges on him, such as drug trafficking or violence. The police were also targeting Hyun-soo, and they would definitely put him in prison until he died. At this time, Lawyer Shin felt unprecedented pressure. Lawyer Shin went to Hyun-soo's house. Lawyer Shin came not only to discuss the direction of the defense, but also to ask Hyun-soo's parents for legal fees. When Lawyer Shin saw the small house in front of him, he knew that Hyun-soo's family was not rich, so Lawyer Shin lowered the fee. After Lawyer Shin met Hyun-soo's parents, he realized that Hyun-soo's family was poorer than he thought. No matter what price Lawyer Shin offered, the old couple could not afford it. Lawyer Shin kept lowering the defense fee, but in the end, the two sides still did not reach an agreement. At this time, Lawyer Shin suddenly received news that the prosecutor was about to hold a press conference, so he hurried to see her. Lawyer Shin said that he thought Hyun-soo was not the murderer because Hyun-soo and Guk-hwa had just met. There was no way Hyun-soo could have stabbed her 13 times. The prosecutor replied that she did not think so. According to her, the murderer murdered Guk-hwa in a cruel manner. Perhaps this was not the first time he had committed a crime. Lawyer Shin accused the police of having to arrest Hyun-soo because they couldn't find any useful evidence. The police press conference quickly began. Hyun-soo's parents also sat in front of the TV watching. The prosecutor said that Hyun-soo was a serial killer. She even revealed Hyun-soo's real face, so all the other prisoners knew that Hyun-soo was a murderer. Hyun-soo was shocked when he saw this, and he quickly called Lawyer Shin to ask. Lawyer Shin replied that the next 10 days would be the interrogation period. After 10 days, the court would decide whether to keep Hyun-soo in custody or not. Lawyer Shin told Hyun-soo not to think too much. He affirmed that he would continue to find a way. Hyun-soo calmed down after hearing this. After Lawyer Shin hung up, he went to see the reporters. When Lawyer Shin stood in front of many cameras, he said that the police were abusing their power. They had no solid evidence and already found Hyun-soo guilty. Lawyer Shin's interview was broadcast live. Lawyer Park Mi-kyung also saw the news, so she immediately investigated Hyun-soo's home address. It turned out that Mi-kyung was a representative lawyer of a law firm. She wanted to use Guk-hwa's case to improve her reputation. To put it simply, Mi-kyung wanted to use this case for advertising. Mi-kyung took female lawyer Soo-jin to meet Hyun-soo's parents. Mi-kyung said that Lawyer Shin was just an inexperienced lawyer, and her law firm was very famous. The lawyers here were all good people in the industry. The important thing was that Mi-kyung said that she felt sorry for Hyun-soo, so she would defend him for free. So Hyun-soo's parents agreed to change lawyers. At that time, Hyun-soo's life in prison was very miserable. Serial killers were rare in prison, so the other prisoners decided to act as judges themselves. They covered Hyun-soo's head with a black bag. They took Hyun-soo to a special room. They put a rope around Hyun-soo's neck and pulled him up. Hyun-soo struggled violently, but it was useless. Luckily, a prison guard passed by at the critical moment, so Hyun-soo was able to save his life. At the same time, Lawyer Shin continued to investigate. He tricked the police to enter the scene where Guk-hwa was murdered. He intended to find more clues in the house. Sure enough, Lawyer Shin discovered something surprising. A person named Junho Jung was involved in the case. Guk-hwa's house also had her express delivery goods, but Lawyer Shin still didn't know that he had been replaced. Lawyer Shin went to the market to buy underwear for Hyun-soo. Lawyer Shin also gave money to Hyun-soo in prison. After all, Hyun-soo had to need money when he was in prison, but when Hyun-soo mentioned changing lawyers, Lawyer Shin felt very helpless. Hyun-soo said that the new lawyer was Mi-kyung. She agreed to defend him for free. Lawyer Shin heard that and understood everything. Lawyer Shin wanted to say something, but thought about it and stopped. One day, Taehoon came to see Hyun-soo. Taehoon took Hyun-soo into a room. Ji-tae was sitting there smoking. Not far away, there were 5 prisoners kneeling. It turned out that today, Ji-tae discovered someone secretly selling cigarettes, so he wanted Hyun-soo to tell him who it was. Hyun-soo remembered that when he returned to his cell, he saw them trading with each other. But Hyun-soo didn't want to get into trouble, so he told Ji-tae that he didn't know. However, Ji-tae had been in prison for many years. He could see from his expression that Hyun-soo knew who it was. So Ji-tae slowly approached Hyun-soo. Finally, Hyun-soo still revealed who it was. When Hyun-soo left the room, he heard that person's miserable scream. That night, Hyun-soo woke up with a start. While Hyun-soo was still recovering from his nightmare, he saw Do-sik hang himself and leave this world. When the prison guard took Do-sik away, Jang-ho looked at Hyun-soo. It seemed like Jang-ho was announcing that the next person to be bullied would be Hyun-soo. Fear made Hyun-soo tremble, and he suddenly wanted to escape from prison. But how could a high school student escape from here? The prison guards quickly caught Hyun-soo. Then they used the batons in their hands to would beat him painfully. They pinned Hyun-soo down and beat him up before throwing him into solitary confinement. Outside the prison, the prosecutor was discussing with Captain Park. They planned to let Hyun-soo use a lie detector. If Hyun-soo did not agree, it would prove that he was hiding the truth. That way, the prosecutor would have a reason to charge Hyun-soo. If the machine showed that Hyun-soo was not lying, then it would be fine because the result could not be used as evidence. Simply put, this was not disadvantageous to them. The next day, the two of them acted quickly. They took Hyun-soo to a private room. The prosecutor threatened that based on the current evidence, Hyun-soo would at least be sentenced to life in prison. After some persuasion, the prosecutor mentioned the lie detector. She said that this machine could help Hyun-soo clear the suspicion. At this time, Captain Park also added, he said that the prisoners in prison hated murderers the most. If the lie detector proved that Hyun-soo did not kill anyone, not only would he gain public support, and Hyun-soo would also be bullied less by other prisoners. Hyun-soo would suffer less in prison. After a while, Hyun-soo was psychologically manipulated by the other two, and he quickly agreed to use the lie detector. Captain Park called lawyer Shin, who informed him that Hyun-soo was about to use the machine. When Captain Park knew that Hyun-soo had changed lawyers, he called Mi-kyung. Mi-kyung answered the phone and was angry because Hyun-soo agreed without asking her opinion. But things had come to this, so Mi-kyung had to let Soo-jin go over there to check. Although lawyer Shin was no longer involved in this case, he knew that Hyun-soo was about to suffer as soon as he heard that Hyun-soo was about to take a lie detector test. Lawyer Shin's wife was a researcher at the National Institute of Science, where she also worked, so lawyer Shin relied on his wife's connections to get him to the lie detector test site first. Captain Park and the prosecutor were still trapping Hyun-soo. First, while they were on the road, Captain Park told Hyun-soo about Guk-hwa's misfortune. Then Captain Park took Hyun-soo to see Guk-hwa's body. This made Hyun-soo feel guilty. When Hyun-soo's asthma flared up, Captain Park took the medicine bottle away and said that Hyun-soo was not allowed to take any medicine before the lie detector test. But what's even more absurd is that the questions the prosecutor asked were all based on the premise that Hyun-soo was guilty. Did Hyun-soo feel pleasure when he killed Guk-hwa? Such questions can only be answered with yes or no, so no matter how Hyun-soo answered, he was indirectly admitting that he had killed someone. Captain Park also left the inhaler next to Hyun-soo so that Hyun-soo could feel more pain. Soo-jin had just started working at that time, so she didn't have much experience. She called Mi-kyung, but no one answered, so lawyer Shin took Soo-jin to the monitoring room. Lawyer Shin taught Soo-jin how to use the law to refute Captain Park. In the end, they also prevented Hyun-soo from being interrogated again. Lawyer Shin sabotaged the plot of Captain Park and the prosecutor, thanks to which he saved Hyun-soo once more. But even if Hyun-soo was saved, he was still tortured by the police. When he returned to the prison, Hyun-soo was beaten by Jang-ho again. Even Ji-tae went to see Hyun-soo. Ja-tae gave Hyun-soo a book of repentance and said that tomorrow was the day of the interrogation. Ji-tae said that if Hyun-soo could regain his freedom, that would be great. But if Hyun-soo had to return here, he would have to decide whether to continue being bullied by the White Tigers or Hyun-soo would join the Lions. The next day when the trial took place, Ji-tae gave Hyun-soo a pair of glasses. Ji-tae reminded him that dressing up for court was very important. Ji-tae told Hyun-soo to wear glasses to look more knowledgeable and obedient so that Hyun-soo would be more likely to be accepted by the public and the judge. At the same time, lawyer Shin went to Guk-hwa's funeral. Lawyer Shin saw a girl named Ho-jung, and through the photo of the crime scene, lawyer Shin found a new clue. Guk-hwa had a habit of using fentanyl. It is a clinical pain reliever and anesthetic. Depending on the amount of drug used, it can become poisonous. Therefore, many countries strictly control fentanyl. Only with the consent of a doctor will a hospital dare to use it on a patient. Through clues from social networks, lawyer Shin found the hospital that provided fentanyl to Guk-hwa. Lawyer Shin then asked if the doctor prescribed fentanyl to Guk-hwa. The doctor intended to answer casually, but because lawyer Shin was very knowledgeable about the law, the doctor had to show Guk-hwa's prescription. It turned out that Guk-hwa had been using drugs for 3 years. The second trial took place very quickly. The prosecutor said that Hyun-soo's methods were very cruel. Hyun-soo raped Guk-hwa and then murdered her. This behavior had a strong impact on society, so the police needed to detain Hyun-soo for review. But Mi-kyung thought that the case needed to be carefully examined. Mi-kyung argued that Kim Hyun-soo had always been a good student. He was a model student with excellent academic performance at school, so Hyun-soo could not pose a danger to society. Mi-kyung also asked Hyun-soo to show everyone the injuries on his body. Mi-kyung tried to defend herself to the judge, saying that Hyun-soo had been abused. Mi-kyung then requested that the detention of Hyun-soo be revoked, but the prosecutor clearly did not let Hyun-soo off the hook. She blamed Hyun-soo for refusing to take the lie detector test. left. Furthermore, she claimed that he wanted to escape during the investigation, which was why Hyun-soo was so badly injured by the police. Hyun-soo originally wanted to defend himself, but the prosecutor did not give him any chance. She kept finding loopholes in Hyun-soo's words. The judge was finally convinced, so he continued to sentence Hyun-soo to detention. The prosecutor immediately smiled triumphantly. Mi-kyung was very angry and blamed everything on Hyun-soo's escape. Mi-kyung threw the documents to her assistant and walked away without looking back. On the contrary, Lawyer Shin stopped Soo-jin. Lawyer Shin gave her Gu Kwa's prescription. When Mi-kyung received this document, she immediately thought of a new way. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo returned to prison in despair. When Hyun-soo passed by a fellow prisoner, he was cut by the opponent's toothbrush. Hyun-soo immediately ran towards the infirmary, but the medical staff had already left work. Fortunately, Ji-tae helped Hyun-soo sew up the wound. Ji-tae took this opportunity to say that whether Hyun-soo was the murderer or not was not important. The important thing was that Hyun-soo had to find a way to survive in this prison. On this side, Mi-kyung took Gu Kwa's prescription to meet the prosecutor. At this time, the prosecutor also understood that the new evidence was very important. Mi-kyung wanted to use this document to gain fame, and at the same time, she wanted to use it to refresh her resume. She will have a chance to be promoted to the position of prosecutor general. So the two of them talked to each other. They did not seek the truth, but only cared about their own interests. In the end, the two of them made a decision. Hyun-soo was sentenced to 10 years in prison for manslaughter and could not appeal. Both the prosecutor and Mi-kyung became the winners, and the only one who was hurt the most was Hyun-soo. The next day, Mi-kyung went to the prison and told Hyun-soo that the current situation was very likely that he would be sentenced to life in prison or death. Mi-kyung tried her best to get this result. Then she continued to convince Hyun-soo that 10 years sounded quite long, but this was the lightest punishment at the moment. If Hyun-soo reformed well, he would only need to serve 5 years in prison to be free. Hyun-soo could not bear Mi-kyung's pleading, and finally he agreed to plead guilty in court. After hearing the decision, Lawyer Shin commented that this condition did not sound bad, but Hyun-soo's stain would last a lifetime. Hyun-soo asked what he would do if Lawyer Shin were in this situation. Lawyer Shin replied that he would ask himself if he was the murderer. The trial began again. Mi-kyung confessed on behalf of Hyun-soo. While everyone was waiting for Hyun-soo to confess to gain benefits, Hyun-soo suddenly declared that he did not kill anyone. This decision of Hyun-soo disappointed everyone. Mi-kyung felt deceived. She immediately withdrew from the case and left everything to Soo-jin. On the other hand, after Hyun-soo returned to prison, he was taken away by Baek-ho. Baek-ho threatened Hyun-soo with a toothbrush. Baek-ho demanded that Hyun-soo pay 3 packs of cigarettes as protection fees. Hyun-soo could only buy cigarettes from Ji-tae for 200,000 won a pack, and Hyun-soo was only allowed to buy 1 pack per month. But this time, Ji-tae broke the rules. He gave Hyun-soo another pack, but 2 packs were still not enough for Baek-ho's request. Baek-ho pressed Hyun-soo against the wall. Then he used a toothbrush to cut a line on his neck and continued to beat Hyun-soo. Baek-ho also demanded that Hyun-soo had 2 more packs of cigarettes tomorrow. After that, Baek-ho arrogantly left. In order to survive, Hyun-soo had no choice but to call his father for money. After that, Hyun-soo went to find Ji-tae to buy cigarettes, but Baek-ho still came to cause trouble for Hyun-soo. Baek-ho said he wanted 2 packs of menthol cigarettes, and then he pressed Hyun-soo to the ground. After that, Baek-ho used the cigarette butt to torture him. Luckily, Ji-tae came to his rescue in time. Thanks to that, Hyun-soo's arm was saved. Ji-tae took Hyun-soo to the infirmary to treat his wound. After that, Ji-tae taught Hyun-soo how to survive in prison. Ji-tae also captured Baek-ho and forced him to apologize to Hyun-soo. At first, Baek-ho was very stubborn, but he underestimated Ji-tae. Ji-tae brutally beat Baek-ho in the face. Then Ji-tae burned his hand with boiling water of 200 degrees Celsius. Baek-ho cried miserably on the ground, and it took a long time for the police to arrive. But Baek-ho was dragged into a dark room because all the police here had been bribed by Ji-tae. On this side, Soo-jin had become Hyun-soo's lawyer, but Soo-jin knew that he was not capable enough, so Soo-jin sought out Lawyer Shin to cooperate. Lawyer Shin also came to the prison soon after. Lawyer Shin told Hyun-soo that he had to persevere to the end and not give up. This would be a long battle. Even if Hyun-soo only had a small hope, he had to hold on to it, because once Hyun-soo gave up, everything would end. When Hyun-soo had just returned to the prison cell, Ji-tae called him again. Ji-tae said that Hyun-soo's sister had to transfer schools because of school violence, and Hyun-soo's father had his taxi impounded. Now Hyun-soo's father can only deliver goods to make a living. Ji-tae then told Hyun-soo that he could help Hyun-soo with some things. Ji-tae also asked the other party to help him with something in return, but before Hyun-soo could agree, Ji-tae injected him with a painkiller. Ji-tae then pressed Hyun-soo onto the bed, and then he broke one of Hyun-soo's arms. Ji-tae said that all of this was to get Hyun-soo to an outside outside hospital for treatment. Hyun-soo would soon return after his arm treatment, but then he would be forced to remove the bandage. Fentanyl is a clinical painkiller, but it can also be a poison. Ji-tae wanted to take advantage of the ingredients in that drug. Ji-tae would use them to satisfy his own drug needs. On the other hand, Lawyer Shin went to his wife's sister, So-won. Lawyer Shin asked her to help him go to the scene of the investigation because So-won was also a medical doctor in the laboratory. So-won quickly found many useful clues. At the same time, Captain Park and the prosecutor were also actively preparing, but their ways of doing things were different. Their methods were also different. Captain Park only believed in evidence, so he investigated everywhere, but the prosecutor was no longer a spy, so she invited a person who was about to get married to eat barbecue. She wanted to use her connections to convict Hyun-soo. The next day, the trial began again. This time, the jury system was used. As long as Hyun-soo won the trust of the jury, he could become the winner of the case. The prosecutor said that Hyun-soo raped, murdered, and fled because he was afraid of committing a crime. The prosecutor showed photos of Gu-kwa's daily life. She wanted to use it to win the favor of the jury, but Lawyer Shin was not willing to give up. Lawyer Shin also showed photos of Hyun-soo's daily life. In every photo, Hyun-soo was smiling happily, which showed that he was an energetic young man. Lawyer Shin explained to everyone that a cheerful young man with no criminal record stabbing someone 13 times was completely inconsistent with reality and logic. When the debate could not distinguish a winner from a loser, the prosecutor immediately used the last trick. That was the person she invited to a barbecue last night. This person was a senior forensic scientist with more than 20 years of experience. He said that the stab wound on Gu-kwa's hand was caused by Hyun-soo, but Lawyer Shin showed a drug test report. 3 types of drugs were found in Hyun-soo's body. Even the medical examiner had to admit that these 3 drugs could interact with each other, causing memory loss and pain. Even if someone cut off Hyun-soo's leg, he wouldn't feel anything. So there was another possibility that the wound on Gu-kwa's body would be injured. In that case, the prosecutor's last hope had completely disappeared. She was so unconvinced that she immediately fell on the table. But the prosecutor quickly regained her composure. The prosecutor invited a policeman to test her breathalyzer. She wanted to prove that Hyun-soo fled because she was afraid of committing a crime, but Soo-jin pointed out that the policewoman's breathalyzer was very unreasonable and that the battery was even dead at that time. Meanwhile, the policewoman couldn't prove that Hyun-soo was driving drunk, but she took him to the police station. The prosecutor asked the male policeman to testify again. The male policeman said that Hyun-soo had asked if Gu-kwa was dead. That statement showed that Hyun-soo was confirming Gu-kwa's condition, but Hyun-guk had no sympathy for the victim. Soo-jin argued with the police officer, saying that Hyun-soo might be concerned about the deceased. The police officer glared and lied that Hyun-soo's words didn't sound like concern. Then, Soo-jin showed the driving recorder. The evidence showed that the police officer had actually used Gu-kwa's lottery ticket. This really disappointed the jury. They no longer believed any of the police officer's words. The prosecutor could only use her last resort. She invited Hyun-soo's homeroom teacher. The homeroom teacher said that Hyun-soo had gotten into a fight in high school. Hyun-soo even pushed a friend down the stairs. The prosecutor mentioned this past because she wanted to prove that Hyun-soo had a serious tendency to violence. But the prosecutor did not expect that Hyun-soo did this to his classmate because that classmate insulted his family. Hyun-soo also felt very regretful afterwards. Hyun-soo apologized to the other party and received forgiveness. After everyone heard everything Hyun-soo said, the jury and the audience felt sad. Their attitudes gradually changed to sympathize with Hyun-soo. When the jury gave Hyun-soo sympathy, Soo-jin continued to say that there were many people in court today. But everyone makes mistakes. The police made a mistake when they arrested Hyun-soo and then wanted to frame him for murder, which was both unfair and unreasonable. The jury members gradually agreed. Under Soo-jin's excellent performance, Lawyer Shin smiled with satisfaction. After that, the trial ended. Lawyer Shin went to the detention center. He took out the photo taken at the crime scene and knew that Hyun-soo did not eat the fruit on the table. The knife found on Hyun-soo was taken by Gu-kwa from the kitchen. So, where is the fruit knife on the table? Gu-kwa and Hyun-soo both used drugs. The doctor has not prescribed any medicine for Gu-kwa in the past 2 weeks. So where did the drugs come from? At this moment, Hyun-soo suddenly remembered. Gu-kwa said that a week ago she had an argument with her boyfriend. Combined with the package at the scene and the information on Gu-kwa's social media account, Lawyer Shin immediately guessed. Gu-kwa's friend was a woman named Ho-jung. Lawyer Shin quickly found Ho-jung. At first, Ho-jung refused to cooperate, but Ho-jung was just a person who lacked knowledge of the law, so she was no match for Lawyer Shin. Lawyer Shin said that if Ho-jung did not explain where the drugs came from, he would report it to the police. police, and she would likely be brought in for investigation. Under pressure from lawyer Shin, Ho Jong revealed that the drug supplier was Ki Jong. Selling drugs is a crime. Of course, Ki Jong will not obediently admit his guilt, so lawyer Shin used another trick. Lawyer Shin left his phone at Ki Jong's store, and he went out to smoke. Then lawyer Shin went back to the store to get his phone. Sure enough, lawyer Shin got Ki Jong's recording. It turned out that when Ki Jong saw lawyer Shin looking for him, he immediately knew that Ho Jong had confessed. So Ki Jong called to blame Ho Jong. Lawyer Shin got this recording. Later, lawyer Shin and Soo Jin analyzed the recording. They found out that Ki Jong was Ho Jong's boyfriend. But one day, Ki Jong drank and had sex with Gu Hua, so Ho Jong cut off contact with Gu Hua. Lawyer Shin and Soo Jin thought they would find the murderer, but they didn't expect to discover Gu Hua's relationships. The two could only continue to follow this evidence. They hoped to find another direction for investigation. At the same time, a group of people came to the prison. They asked to check the list of people on medical parole. They targeted Hyun Soo. It turned out that Hyun Soo had helped Ji Tae transport drugs. Because the doctor's arrest incident had happened, it had attracted the members of the anti-drug squad. The anti-drug squad had been divided into two groups. The captain was responsible for interrogating Ji Tae, and the vice captain would deal with Hyun Soo. The captain told Ji Tae that his purpose was to capture Hyun Soo. As long as Ji Tae told the truth, it would be fine. On this side, the vice captain also said the same thing. If Hyun Soo proved that Ji Tae was the mastermind, they could let Hyun Soo go. But Ji Tae didn't believe the captain at all. Ji Tae spoke to the other party arrogantly. Ji Tae said that the prison guards here had changed 7 people, but he was still safe and sound. Because everyone accepted Ji Tae's favor, the captain was very angry, but he suddenly received a call from his superior. The superior wanted the captain to withdraw immediately. Ji Tae also bribed the captain's superior. The vice captain also relayed the information that Hyun Soo did not say anything. After the anti-drug team left, Ji Tae looked at Hyun Soo with admiration, so Ji Tae used his connections to help Hyun Soo get back the taxi that Hyun Soo's father had impounded. Ji Tae also gave Hyun Soo his cell phone for confirmation. Only after Hyun Soo received a definite answer from his father did he feel relieved. At the same time, Hyun Soo also expressed his admiration for Ji Tae's power. Ji Tae gave Hyun Soo the phone and said that if he wanted, he could call his father. On this side, lawyer Shin also checked the surveillance camera and discovered that on the night of the murder, there was a man who had been following Hyun Soo and Gu Hua. When the two went to the riverside to get some fresh air, the man was also standing there not far away and did not leave. Lawyer Shin and Soo Jin investigated and found out that the man, Lee Chon, was a delivery man. Lawyer Shin and Soo Jin quickly ran to the delivery company. They knew that Lee Chon had a criminal record for assaulting others. Until now, Lee Chon still had to live with electronic shackles. The company found out and fired Lee Chon. Very quickly, it was time for the trial. Lawyer Shin and Soo Jin split up to act. Soo Jin was responsible for attending the trial, and lawyer Shin would go find Lee Chon. Lawyer Shin went to an abandoned landfill and found Lee Chon. Lawyer Shin told Lee Chon that the surveillance video at the scene showed that he had followed Hyun Soo and Gu Hua on the night of the incident. In addition, Lee Chon also has a criminal record. If the police knew about this, Lee Chon would receive a heavier sentence. When lawyer Shin kept provoking Lee Chon immediately took out the axe next to him. Lee Chon suddenly threw the axe fiercely at lawyer Shin. Unexpectedly, lawyer Shin was not afraid at all. Lawyer Shin also needed Lee Chon to testify in court. Lawyer Shin is really a lawyer with a very good professional ethics. Because lawyer Shin wanted to help innocent people escape the crime, he did not care about the danger and provoked Lee Chon. Fortunately, before lawyer Shin came to find Lee Chon, he contacted the police to come there. Therefore, Lee continued to use the sickle to attack again. The police tried their best to arrest Lee Chon. At the same time, in court, Captain Park once again mentioned that Hyun Soo had 3 chances to confess, but Hyun Soo always avoided it. This proves that Hyun Soo is a criminal who is very good at disguising. Furthermore, Captain Park also said firmly that Hyun Soo's actions that night were very suspicious. Hyun Soo seemed to be on the way to find a murder target. Hyun Soo, who was originally calm, was also agitated, and he completely fell into Captain Park's trap. Hyun Soo was extremely agitated and expressed his rebuttal. The prosecutor saw Hyun Soo's reaction. The more agitated Hyun Soo was, the more likely he was to reveal his flaws. So the prosecutor used provocation. She asked Hyun Soo to talk to her. Hyun Soo could have refused, but all the resentment in his heart exploded at that moment. Finally, Hyun Soo sat on the witness stand and confronted the prosecutor. Originally, the jury of the trial had changed, but this time, Hyun Soo lost all his previous advantages. The prosecutor tried his best to criticize Hyun Soo in court. She said that Hyun Soo claimed to be an honest and upright person, but Hyun Soo stole his father's car without a license. evidence. When Hyunsu saw someone injured, he did not call the police. Instead, Hyunsu destroyed the scene and hurriedly fled. The prosecutor said that if Hyunsu had called the police, he might have been able to save Gukwa's life. The prosecutor questioned what qualifications a person like Hyunsu had to assert his innocence. When Hyunsu remembered Gukwa's tragic death, a strong sense of guilt arose in his heart. Hyunsu's defenses gradually collapsed. The prosecutor then tried to pressure him to question him. She asked him if he had killed anyone. The feeling of guilt in his heart made it difficult for Hyunsu to breathe. Moreover, Hyunsu had been drinking that night, so he could not remember what happened at that time. At first, Hyunsu firmly asserted that he did not kill anyone, but now, Hyunsu just said that he did not remember clearly. The result of the trial was too obvious. More and more people believed that Hyunsu was the murderer. When lawyer Shin called Sujin to ask about the result of the trial, Sujin cried and apologized to lawyer Shin. Sujin said that it was all her fault. If she could control Hyunsu, the result would not be like this. After lawyer Shin knew of the situation, he immediately went to the prison to visit Hyunsu. Lawyer Shin told Hyunsu not to feel guilty. It was not his fault. Gukwa was stabbed 13 times. She was dead and had no breath at all. Even if Hyunsu had called the police at that time, he would not have been able to save her. When lawyer Shin saw Hyunsu's collapsed appearance, he also felt that this case was very difficult. When Hyunsu was in the prison cafeteria, he saw the news report about himself. The inmates began to mock Hyunsu, saying that Hyunsu was a murderer with a beastly heart. Hyunsu could only hide alone to vent his anger and resentment. But this scene happened to be seen by Baeko, so he immediately came to mock Hyunsu. Baeko told Hyunsu not to worry. 30 years would pass very quickly. Baeko also took out a white phone and showed it off in front of Hyunsu. Hyunsu immediately had a bad feeling. Hyunsu immediately looked for his sleeping place and found that the phone was gone. Hyunsu knew that Baeko had stolen it. Hyunsu was also angry at that time. Hyunsu found Baeko and wanted the other party to return the phone. But Baeko not only did not return it to Hyunsu, Baeko also beat him very fiercely. Although Hyunsu wanted to fight back, he could not fight back against Baeko. As a result, Hyunsu was beaten painfully by Baeko. The next day, Hyunsu was eating in the cafeteria. His roommate Sangsu deliberately did not sit with Hyunsu. At this time, Hyunsu finally understood one thing. Normally, Sangsu treated him quite well, but at the crucial moment, he was deceived. Sangsu must have told Baeko about the phone. Hyunsu's trial did not go well. Now Sangsu was betrayed by his roommate. At this time, Hyunsu was completely desperate, so he was determined to change. Hyunsu finally mustered up the courage to go to Jitae. Sangsu hoped that Jitae could help him. Jitae also told him about his experience. It turned out that he used to be a model student with excellent grades, but Jitae was accidentally caught up in a violent incident at university, and he had to take responsibility, and no one believed him. Jitae and Hyunsu were both suffering and tragic in the same way. Jitae even wanted to end his life, but when he was about to die, he suddenly came to his senses. Jitae understood that his life was up to him. So when he saw Hyunsu, Jitae felt like he saw himself again that year, so he wanted to take care of Hyunsu. Jitae gave Hyunsu a cigarette and expressed that if Hyunsu wanted to survive, he had to improve himself. At this time, Hyunsu did not hesitate. He took the cigarette and started smoking it. From that day on, Hyunsu and Jitae ate together. The Lion Gang also became a group of 3, Jitae, Hyunsu, and Taehoon. Even though Hyunsu had to face Baeko's gaze, he did not show any anxiety or fear. Because Hyunsu did not want to continue being bullied, he started to exercise. Every day, Hyunsu did 500 push-ups. Under Jitae's guidance, Hyunsu also worked hard on boxing to improve his fighting ability. In the evening, Hyunsu called home. His sister cried and told him that because of her relationship with him, their mother was fired. Her sister also had to transfer schools because of bullying. Hyunsu's family home was also taken away. His sister also loudly questioned why Hyunsu didn't argue in court. Hyunsu didn't know how to respond after hearing that. It wasn't that Hyunsu didn't want to argue, but that no one believed him. The next day, Hyunsu called his mother, but his mother always turned off his phone. At this time, Hyunsu felt extremely disappointed. He could only practice boxing to relieve his mood. That day, Baeko came to challenge Hyunsu again, but this time, Hyunsu didn't avoid it. Jitae also came over and told Hyunsu that whether he won or lost, Hyunsu had to end this matter. Otherwise, Hyunsu would be bullied forever. Hyunsu then returned to his room and cut his hair short. He no longer hesitated. Hyunsu went to the appointed place to fight Baeko. Hyunsu could not bear any more losses. Hyunsu turned off the lights in the room. When Baeko came to turn on the lights, Hyunsu had already punched him hard in the head. Then the two fought fiercely. Hyunsu turned all his resentment into strong punches. Hyunsu continuously punched Baeko straight in the face. Hyunsu beat him so hard that he was flat on the ground and could not get up. Hyunsu originally intended to hit Baeko with a vase, but in the end, Hyun-soo still spared his life. On the other side, Captain Park ordered Lee Chon to be released. Lawyer Shin was extremely angry when he knew the information. Because Captain Park still insisted that Hyun-soo was the real murderer, he did not investigate anything and released the person. Another trial took place. Lee Chon deliberately appeared in court to testify. At this time, Lawyer Shin said that Lee Chon had broken into a famous house, intending to humiliate others. Lee Chon also had a criminal record, including attempted murder. On the way, Lee Chon had been following Hyun-soo and Gu Kwa. When the murder happened, Lee Chon had no alibi. The electronic handcuffs on Lee Chon's legs were also off. Lee Chon could clearly be suspected of being a criminal, but Captain Park and the prosecutor did not care about that. They still focused all their suspicions on Hyun-soo. After the trial ended, Hyun-soo's cell was moved next to Ji-tae's. The next day, another intense trial began. This time, Lawyer Shin invited his wife, Mrs. Shin, to come. She raised new suspicions. First, the lock on Gu Kwa's balcony was broken, not excluding the possibility of someone breaking in. Next, there was no trace of the knife at the scene, so people could not confirm that the knife found on Hyun-soo was the murder weapon. In addition, there was a very large scratch on the table, which showed that Gu Kwa liked to play with cutting hands. And more importantly, through the analysis of the 3 stab wounds on Gu Kwa's body, people could judge that the murderer was right-handed, but Hyun-soo was left-handed, and that did not match the characteristics of the murderer. At that time, the prosecutor was so embarrassed that she became angry. She began to attack Mrs. Shin. The prosecutor implied that Mrs. Shin had a relationship with Lawyer Shin, so Mrs. Shin intentionally defended Hyun-soo. But Mrs. Shin calmly said that she came here just to point out that the police report was too biased. They did not care about other possibilities, and the police were too obsessed with speculating about the crime. Mrs. Shin used her position as a professional. She just expressed her dissatisfaction. Mrs. Shin also emphasized that the judge and jury should consider everything. After the trial ended, Taehoon also gave Hyun-soo a tattoo. Hyun-soo suddenly came to Ji-tae's side and asked Ji-tae if Ji-tae believed that he was not the murderer. But Ji-tae said that he didn't care if Hyun-soo was the murderer or not. He just needed to know the current Hyun-soo. This was the first time Hyun-soo heard an answer other than guilty or innocent. Since Hyun-soo followed Ji-tae, he had changed a lot, but that also led to more danger. It turned out that Baeko still hated Hyun-soo after losing the fight, so Baeko asked Dong-seok for help to find a way to get revenge. Dong-seok immediately took Hyun-soo somewhere to deal with it. Suddenly, Hyun-soo knelt down on the ground. He planned to cut off an arm to compensate, but at the critical moment, Ji-tae and Taehoon suddenly ran over. Ji-tae stood in front of Hyun-soo. He gave Baeko a hard slap in the face. Then Ji-tae took Hyun-soo away. They didn't dare to fight back, but Ji-tae also reminded Hyun-soo that Hyun-soo had to be careful not to be secretly attacked by others, especially the person who was protecting Baeko. When the trial resumed, Lawyer Shin targeted Gu Kwa's stepfather, because after she was murdered, the inheritance would be transferred to him. He also got Gu Kwa's insurance compensation. It could be said that the stepfather was the one who benefited the most in this case. But when Gu Kwa was murdered, the stepfather was with his girlfriend. He had a very clear alibi. Then Lawyer Shin mentioned the man driving the car. His appearance that night was not a coincidence, but he had been there for a week straight. The man also had no alibi, so he could be a suspect. But in the end, the man confessed in court that he liked Gu Kwa's friend, Ho Jong. He had also been punished by the police for stalking. Ho Jong nodded in confirmation that it was true. This put the defense in a deadlock. Lawyers Shin and Soo Jin stayed up all night to investigate the case documents. They finally found another breakthrough. It was the asthma inhaler found at the scene. So when the trial resumed, Lawyer Shin asked Captain Park to hand over the inhaler. Lawyer Shin criticized Captain Park for handling the case in a biased manner. The police did not investigate Ki Jong's drug dealing, nor did they investigate Lee Chon's criminal record. They did not investigate the stepfather who benefited the most from Gu Kwa, nor did they investigate Gu Kwa's ex-boyfriend. These people were clearly suspicious, but the police insisted on charging Hyun-soo. Captain Park said that he had principles and that all actions were based on evidence. So Lawyer Shin followed his words and said that if Captain Park wanted to talk about evidence, then why was there an asthma inhaler in the photo of the scene? But it was not on the list of evidence. Captain Park explained that he saw Hyun-soo in great pain, so Captain Park gave the inhaler to Hyun-soo. Lawyer Shin argued that if Hyun-soo was sick, he should have been taken to the hospital immediately, and Captain Park should not have given him the asthma inhaler. Captain Park had been a criminal police officer for more than 30 years, and he could not have not known this. Therefore, Lawyer Shin had reason to doubt the accuracy of the other evidence from the police. This breakthrough was very effective. The jury unanimously supported Hyun-soo. But even in this situation, the prosecutor prosecutor, although knowing that the police were at fault, still stated that Hyun-soo was the murderer. The prosecutor directly requested the death penalty for Hyun-soo. After many trials, Goo-hwa's case was finally decided. Ji-tae felt that Hyun-soo did not belong in prison. Ji-tae believed that Hyun-soo would definitely be released. So Ji-tae gave Hyun-soo a new phone. Ji-tae did not say goodbye to Hyun-soo because that would be the best wish for Hyun-soo. That night, lawyer Shin used all his brain power to deduce the final arguments of the trial, because he knew that every word he said tomorrow could change Hyun-soo's fate. The next day in court, both sides made their final statements. The jury also gave their verdict. The judge said that Hyun-soo should be acquitted and released. But when everyone was still happy, the judge suddenly said that the jury's opinion could only be considered for reference because there were no other suspects in the case at the moment. In addition, there was a lot of evidence in the case. The judge declared Hyun-soo guilty of murder and sentenced him to life in prison. Although the case had been going on for a long time, the decision was still unfair. The trials kept repeating. Hyun-soo had a hard time getting the approval of the jury, but then the judge denied everything. It was obvious that he wanted to put Hyun-soo to death. Hyun-soo returned to prison again. Hyun-soo told his parents that they didn't need to say anything more, and they didn't need to visit him in prison. Hyun-soo was completely disappointed with life and planned to stay in prison forever. But the injustice continued. The prosecutor got her wish. She was promoted to a district prosecutor. Captain Park also retired as an honorary director. Ji-tae comforted Hyun-soo that the so-called Korean justice system was only a place for rich people. If people had no money, no connections, no power, then there could be no justice. Hyun-soo accepted his current life, but Hyun-soo's cruel fate had not ended yet. When Ji-tae was not paying attention, Bae-ko used the toothbrush in his hand to sneakily attack Ji-tae. Ji-tae was stabbed to death by Bae-ko. Before dying, Ji-tae told Hyun-soo not to take revenge. Ji-tae told Hyun-soo to continue to persevere and not to give up. Only by persevering could one see hope. Ji-tae eventually died. Tae-hoon was beaten to the point of disability. Of the group of three, only Hyun-soo was left. Hyun-soo originally thought that things would end like this, but the plot quickly changed. Lawyer Shin reviewed the video many times, and he found an important element. The man who drove the car when he was at Goo-hwa's house, he used a hidden camera to take many photos. So Lawyer Shin went to him to ask. The man who drove the car said that he had already given all the photos to the police. Lawyer Shin had to find a police friend to help him. Thanks to that, he was able to get these photos. So the suspect appeared. It was the doctor who prescribed medicine to Goo-hwa. Lawyer Shin also checked Goo-hwa's phone records. He confirmed that the last number Goo-hwa called was this doctor's. Lawyer Shin immediately had a hunch that the doctor was the culprit. But at this point, Goo-hwa's case was over. If Lawyer Shin continued to appeal, the judge would lose all face. Neither the police nor the prosecutor wanted to help Lawyer Shin reopen the case. So Lawyer Shin went to retired Captain Park. Lawyer Shin presented everything he had investigated. Captain Park originally did not want to care about this matter, but when his nephew suddenly ran over, Lawyer Shin emotionally said that Captain Park's children were precious, so were other people's children. Perhaps because Captain Park felt guilty, he immediately went to the prosecutor. The two negotiated and decided to reopen the case for an investigation. Goo-hwa's case thus arose again. It turned out that Goo-hwa and the doctor had an affair. After Goo-hwa knew that the doctor was married, Goo-hwa suggested breaking up with the other party. When the doctor saw Goo-hwa next to Hyun-soo, the doctor immediately murdered Goo-hwa to blame Goo-hwa. Thanks to Lawyer Shin's efforts, Hyun-soo was finally declared innocent and released. But the most shameless person was the prosecutor. She used Goo-hwa's case to advance her career. Now the prosecutor says that for the sake of justice, she continues to investigate the case just to gain more fame and benefits. The movie ends here. See you in the next videos.